Hi, and welcome to Tech Leader TV. I'm your host, John Thomas Flynn, and this show inaugurates our 13th season of TLTV, a live streaming video webcast and television program viewable by anyone with a computer, a modem, smartphone, or TV and Comcast. Of course, we come to you today, as we do every day, courtesy of our sponsors: Veeam, Advanced Onion, Akamai, IP Solutions, Carasoft, LexisNexis, and our newest sponsor, Federal News Network, the key source of breaking news, information, and analysis for those who support the missions of government agencies. We have another very exciting show today with a distinguished representative from the largest state parks organization in the U.S., the California Department of Parks and Recreation, with almost 4,000 employees and a $1 billion budget. However, before I introduce our guest, I'd like to take a few minutes, as frequent Tech Leader TV viewers are known to relish, and possibly disdain, as the case may be, to pontificate on pressing issues of the day. I think you'll be interested to know that I had the unexpected but distinct pleasure to fly back to Sacramento from Washington, D.C. just this past Saturday with none other than Governor Gavin Newsom, a previous guest on Tech Leader TV, I might add. We only had a brief time to chat as he and I boarded together, and then as we walked out of the terminal. But this news hound never misses an opportunity to go for a story. And naturally, you'll never guess what our conversation centered on. You're right, state information technology. Now let me emphasize, this was not a private conversation, but within your earshot of at least a half a dozen fellow passengers, so I'm not disclosing any confidence. So we spoke about his fateful appearance on my show almost exactly 5 years ago, launching him, I like to think, on his way to the governor's office. Well, maybe not. Back to our serendipitous Saturday evening chat. It was his final and most memorable remark as our brief conversation ended that I wanted to share with you today. I'll sum it up like this. I asked him, what are you going to do about fixing state IT? According to Governor Newsom, while shaking his head slightly frustratingly, he said, the state never has been successful at IT. With that, we parted. Well, that may be hyperbolic, perhaps. Nevertheless, I think it dramatically and accurately reflects the viewpoint the state's new chief executive officer has for the state's overall management of its multi-billion-dollar IT investment, a viewpoint that is unfortunately shared by most in the legislature, the media, and the public at large. However, while his predecessor, Jerry Brown, had a rather similar opinion, his reaction was to downgrade the state CIO's office from a cabinet-level agency and hope that the problems would go away, not be noticed, or at least never reach a level of intense scrutiny which might trigger a prolonged public embarrassment to his administration. On the other hand, from Gavin Newsom's remarks at his appearance on my Tech Leader TV show several years ago, by his book titled Centerville, How to Take the Town Square Digital and Reinvent Government, and his extemporaneous remarks to me during our airport confab just 3 days ago, I believe he will adopt a different approach, a much more activist approach. His tone Saturday evening clearly indicated to me that Gavin Newsom was not going to sit back and hope that IT problems go away. His tone told me that he was going to change the way the state does IT. He was going to radically change the way the state does it. And what those changes are, well, we'll have to wait and see, but you heard it here first on Tech Leader TV. So listeners, be prepared. As I like to say on this show, the state of California can always do better. So let's continue our journey today as we discuss government, politics, technology, and as I like to say, other unnatural acts. We'll be right back in a moment with our guests, and we'll get started. Hi, and welcome back to Tech Leader TV. Our guest today is Patrick Dennis. Patrick was appointed Chief Information Officer for the California Department of Parks and Rec just about last September, I believe. As CIO, he has overall responsibility for all activities that support Parks' critical lines of business, including the project portfolio, management, procurement, infrastructure, and security. Previously, he served at the California Department of Technology and the Franchise Tax Board. Patrick, welcome to Tech Leader TV. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
Notice I've got a little green left over.
Yeah,
for my,
that's awesome.
You know, the worst thing can happen is St. Patrick's Day on a weekend. You don't get put all your bring your bling to the office, etc. And I'm glad I could today. And obviously, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. I've touched upon your background and experience, but why don't you elaborate a little bit on how your career evolved to heading up a large organization like State Parks in California?
Sure, absolutely. So my career in state service started about 28 years ago. I started at the Franchise Tax Board in an entry-level position there, working in their information center, answering questions about taxes and for different taxpayers who called in. I was introduced to IT through a service help desk position for an application called the Taxpayer Information System, helping system users with their IT issues with the system and their use of that system. I was introduced to IT through an opportunity to become a system tester. So I knew nothing about system testing, and they were looking for volunteers to be system testers on a new collection system they were implementing. And so I went in there and did that. It was a really good fit. Ended up moving up through the IT analyst series, became an IT testing manager, and then went to work on the EDR project, which you might have heard of. So Enterprise Data Revenue. Sure. Helped kick off that project through the procurement process, helped out with a lot of the technical requirements, management, things like that through the development of that RFP. Worked on that project and then left for a promotional opportunity in 2012 to work at the Department of Technology. And I did project oversight, performed project oversight in the Health and Human Services Agency and education portfolio. So I had oversight over that portfolio, helped to manage a group of managers who were performing that oversight function, and then got the opportunity to go to work for Scott Gregory in the Office of Digital Innovation. Worked for Scott for about a year and a half, and then moved on to do special projects, working directly for the directorate, so Amy Tong and Chris Cruz. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. So then now here I am at Parks and Recreation as the CIO.
Yeah. So, describe a little bit of your overall role and responsibilities there.
Okay, so as CIO of State Parks, I have responsibility for IT operations, as you said, as you noted, in the nation's largest state park system. So just to put that in context for you and your audience, it's 280 individual park units. 160 or so of those units have actual office staff located at them. We also have responsibility for IT operations for boating and waterways, the Division of Off-Highway Vehicle Recreation, and the Office of Historic Planning.
Is your, I always like to say that some of us, we stand on the shoulders of giants. Mm-hmm. And I was good friends with a number of your predecessors over at Parks and Rec. In fact, one who has joined us today, Alan Friedman, is in the audience watching our show. And your predecessor, I'm trying to recall his name.
Phil Manas.
Yes. Yeah. Did he retire?
He did.
Is he still in the state? Okay.
He did.
It's an interesting background. Obviously, a very, your overall, the programs that you oversee are not the usual kind of state-oriented, mundane activities that everybody's so familiar with. It's certainly everybody's in favor of Parks and Rec. It just comes up with issues now and then about various organizational issues that all folks have. Let's tell about your actual organization. What's your budget? How many staff you have? How many bureaus, if you will, or offices?
Right. So I have about 60 IT professionals working, doing a fantastic job at State Parks. We have a budget allocation of about $17 million a year. 60 staff really doing a great job in everything from, like you said, project management, procurement, information security, web development, application development, and all the things IT.
Mm-hmm. And would you consider Parks to be a centralized organization or decentralized?
So Parks IT is centralized. So all of our network runs back through the Natural Resources Agency data center. Okay. And so organizationally also we're centralized. So all field staff report back up through headquarters. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tim Garza has always been able to keep that data center to himself over there. Really interesting during data consolidation times.
Yeah, Tim's great.
I always kid him about it. It's good it's a great guy. One of the things that when you take over a new role, like you've been there probably 6 months or so, 6 or 7 months, what kind of organization did you inherit and what kind of changes did you make to it and why?
Well, I've inherited an organization of really hardworking IT individuals. I think they're doing a lot to help parks be successful in implementing IT. A lot of the people that I have working for me are extremely capable and very, very, very good at doing their job. They have a large task in front of them, and so they do a fantastic job doing it. Some of the changes that we're currently looking at, there's been no fundamental changes really since I've been there, but I am lucky enough to be part of an organization that's gone through quite a transformation effort over the last 2 or 3 years. And so some of the IT's been a big part of that. And we've expanded our wireless network. We have one of the largest wireless networks in the state. We've also, through doing that network, through expanding that network, allowed our parks visitors to have, access to online things when they need it, like mapping when they're maps and such when they're camping and hiking.
Yeah, I want to get into that a little bit later, but organizationally, has much been changed in how you're?
Organizationally, no, not quite yet.
No changes on the drawing board coming up along those lines?
Not yet, no.
Well, it's interesting. You did mention that Transformation Commission, the transformation plan that you talked about from, I guess it really came out of a commission from 4 or 5 years ago, the Transformation Commission. Let me just read you one of the opening statements. While its beauty and potential is great, most of the system's operation and facilities are outdated, broken, and stuck in time, almost reflecting that it's 150 years old. Now, Patrick, I have to say, that's the kind of blue ribbon commission report you don't want to see when it's done on your watch, and indeed it wasn't, so don't get me wrong. But as negative as that might sound, it triggered an enormous change within the organization. And you began to talk about it with Wi-Fi, but some of the things, I guess they came up with a 2-year plan, tactical plan really. Right. And the first solution I looked at was your new, to replace Reserve Americas, the Reservation California, I think.
Yeah, Reserve California.
Yeah, I actually went on and tried it out myself. Tell us a little bit about that and some of the other initiatives that fell out of that. I know they all weren't on your watch, but certainly some of these are pretty interesting and we'd like to hear about it.
Sure, so Reserve California is our online reservation system. It actually has a public-facing website that allows our parks visitors to go out and secure camping reservations for their favorite campgrounds. There's also a parks-facing portion of the application that allows park staff to sell parks passes, annual passes, daily use passes, and things of that nature. Also manage our inventory of parks. So you can imagine there's a lot of campsites, and so there's a lot of management of inventory that's necessary for that to see, which parks are open, which parks are available, and which ones are still closed. So
on that Reserve California, in fact, I actually went on it and have used it over the years, but I haven't used it in a couple of years. And I was amazed that you can not only see the campsites, which you could before, but you can click on them and get a visual illustration of what the actual campsite looks like. Very, it's very intuitive and very informative. I think it's nice to have something like that under an organization. And who actually did that project?
Well, thank you. We worked on that with our systems integrator Conduit. So it used to be Xerox Solutions, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, okay. And some of the other talks, you're going to talk about some of the other interesting ones. Oh, let me ask you a question while you're on Reserve California. Okay. It reminds me of that whole issue which comes up a lot now. It's one of the hot top 10 priorities for CIOs around the country, and that's identity and access management. And I believe you can log in there, register and log in. Where is Parks and Recs in terms of identity and access management? Are you waiting for an enterprise approach to it? I know some departments were doing it individually. I remember DMV was looking into it 4 or 5 years ago. Where is that in the state? Is it up to the departments now, or is it?
I think identity and access management is very important, right? We're trying to make sure that we users just have the ability to authenticate in a secure way. And at Parks, it's on our map of things that we want to do.
Yeah.
My ISO and I are working on a map to figure out how we're going to do an IDAM solution that's really works for all of our internal applications. I'd say we have limited ID and access management, single sign-on right now for some of our applications. We want to expand that across the enterprise and make sure that we're taking full advantage of that.
Yeah, and I would assume there's scores of departments that are under the same situation. In other words, but I would assume, like so many states right now, are looking at an enterprise approach to it, because you hate to have how many passwords do we need, but a password for DMV, a password for parks, password for FTB, and so on and so on. It would make sense to have an enterprise approach, and maybe we'll see that from Department of Technology. Talk a little bit more about the revenue collection. That's always interesting. The governor had a heart attack about not being able to, the DMV wouldn't accept credit cards.
Right.
That's always been an issue for a number of departments. But I remember now, Parks has moved in that direction, haven't they?
Absolutely. So as part of our transformation effort that we mentioned earlier, going from a cash-based only fee collection system for entrance into our parks, we've implemented credit card processing. So we now accept credit cards at our parks.
Oh, great.
We're also working on expanding our point of sale in the Reserve California system. So the Reserve California system also has a point of sale aspect to it, which will allow us to centralize our pass sales and be able to draw on metrics for usage and parks visitation. So we're looking forward to that.
And that is again a challenge. I can remember when, this is 2 or 3 years ago, when people were talking about with the 280 parks, as you say, but there was no way really. Although I want to say there's 70 to 80 million visitors a year to state parks. And they always was a caveat associated with that number, just because, if you like many of us have a pass. I've had the Golden Poppy for a number of years, not to reflect my age, of course, but
Of course not.
I've had the but if I buy that at Folsom and go to another park over here, you can't really tell. I just get waved through, so you don't really know who's there. But so there's a real challenge in that respect. How many visitors go to each park? And I also remember it being a challenge budget-wise to say, well, how much does this park cost to operate and how much does it bring in revenue? Because I want to say that's like 150 million a year in revenue from the parks. Does that sound right?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a challenge. And is that going to be something that's on the drawing boards for budget and cost control, things like that?
Right. So it's definitely on our list. So it's very important to us to be able to make sure that we're gathering those metrics so that we can measure things like parks usage, parks visitation, make sure that that we're factoring those things into staffing plans at the park operations level, making sure that we can notice seasonal fluctuations in attendance and pass usage for some of our special passes.
Right.
So it's very important.
Yeah, it is.
It's on the map for sure.
I forgot to mention, you folks were kind enough, and your public information officer, Adeline, provided us with a video of the state parks. Doesn't have any audio, which is good. We can keep talking during it, but let's bring it up for our audience to see, and maybe we'll talk about a little bit of it as we continue with our discussion about your initiatives and in the
absolutely.
past and coming up in the future. As you can see, it starts with the Enchanted Hill. Do you know, interesting enough, the Hearst Castle, designed by Julia Morgan for William Randolph Hearst. Do you know that the construction began exactly 100 years ago?
Wow.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
My crack research team at TLTV comes up with these kind of things. But it's a fabulous place. Have you ever taken a trip down there?
I have not, but I'm looking forward to getting out there as soon as I can.
That's correct. And this is the famous Neptune pool. I understand that Vinnie O'Reilly tried to jump in there one time during a previous tour. But anyway, we'll keep talking as this goes along, because there's no audio to it, but it certainly is
some beautiful footage,
striking. Yes, it is, and we're going to see some stuff from the mountains and hillsides coming up. Let's talk. One of the things is digital asset management procurement. Did you already talk about that? The asset management, electronic signature.
Well, so when it comes to asset management, I want to really touch on that really quick. That's really one of my focus areas, kind of coming into parks and looking at the landscape and being able to realize that there's a lot of business areas within Department of Parks and Recreation that manage assets. And so one of the things that we have is, we have a law enforcement agency, or a great law enforcement agency that has to track a lot of equipment and arms and things like evidence, etc. We also have the Office of Historic Preservation. We also have cultural programs and historic programs that have to manage museum curation and inventory there. So in addition to IT inventory, right, which is near and dear to me, and being able to track those things proactively, It's very important for me to, you know, come up with an enterprise solution that can hopefully meet the majority of the needs, maybe even have some geospatial aspects to that inventory tracking so that we can know, you know, physical location, which is a very important part of inventory management, so that we can, you know, in the case of some of like wildfires that we've experienced here earlier this year, we can know what equipment was on site and, and what inventory was there, and we might need to account for.
You know, one of the interesting is we have this video on, which is this is Morro Bay, isn't it? Morro Bay has a beautiful public golf course there, and I think Mike Smith from Unisys will confirm this, but it is without a doubt the slowest track in the state. It can take 6 to 7 hours to play golf there, but it's beautiful. I love the same.
It takes me 6 or 7 hours anyway. So, yeah.
Google Trekker. I was very impressed. I didn't know about this. Talk about Google Trekker. Everybody knows, obviously, about the Google with their cars going around and mapping the world over and above sea level and below sea level. But this was new. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Parks partnered with Google Trekker to provide on our website, parks.ca.gov. If you go to What's New, you can see that there's a virtual tour. So we offer a 360-degree tour online to prospective visitors who want to go out and take a virtual tour. For those citizens that might not otherwise be able to make it out to the parks, they can still virtually enjoy the park. And for those that are looking for a place to go with their family on vacation, they can go out and prospectively shop for, you know, parks that seem interesting to them and their family. Yeah, so it's really great. I recommend people go out and take a look at it.
Yes, it is worth the visit. The mobility has become very important, and I know there's a excuse me, a park curator initiative having to do with I would assume you go in the park and you put on your phone or your mobile device and it'll give you a tour guide, if you will, a virtual tour guide, much like you can get in a museum.
Right, so that's one of the modernization efforts that we have is through Parks Interpretive Services. Users can go in and access Parks tours online, and so on their cell device, and get a tour and be educated about the where they're at and the land that they're enjoying.
Now, you did mention about Wi-Fi. This is very interesting. You got 280 parks. It's my understanding about a third, maybe a third of them have Wi-Fi now.
Right.
I would assume there's some real technology challenges for that. Is it a satellite thing? Is it microwave dishes through the through OES? How are you connecting?
Currently, we're connecting through the Parks network. So we've actually expanded the Parks network. We bridged that network across all of our different locations in the state that we've expanded to so far. I think you're correct in your assumption of about 130 or so different state parks. But we're also looking at other alternatives. So I'm also looking at microwave technology. We've met with some people to discuss that. We're also looking at satellite technology for some of our more disparately located sites. There's a lot of challenges, but we're addressing them as we go.
Well, that'll be interesting. Once again, it gives the public a little more than just walking around with a camera now. You can walk around and actually have a ability to, like we said, have the curator, have the ability to see a lot more and find out a lot more background of what's available at those particular sites. You know, I'd be lying if I didn't say, based on the whole issue of cannabis, geez. You mentioned law enforcement, and this is kind of out of the blue, but I would think there's stories, particularly in the northern counties, about you know, the cannabis growers and all that. And I remember reading about state parks that didn't even people putting their farms on state parks and all that. Is that a serious problem with parks, or is it something that kind of off your radar screen in terms of law enforcement?
It's a little bit off my radar. I haven't really had a chance to have any conversations about that.
I'm sure it's an issue for your law enforcement people, and obviously something that is big since they legalized it here in California not too long ago. Okay, everybody's talking about data analytics. We were at NASCIO a few months ago, and we talked about data analytics and artificial intelligence. Any initiatives that you've got over in parks along those lines, including new technologies like not only analytics and that, but blockchain, access management again, anything like that you're doing?
As part of our IT strategic plan that we have underway, we've been working on trying to prepare ourselves for the development of an IT strategic plan. And as part of that, data-driven decisions and metrics around that are going to be very important. And so I would say we're in the infancy of that stage of trying to develop some things that we're going to look at in order to measure to measure park success. So we're thinking about it.
So you're currently looking to prepare a new strategic plan. Did I understand that? So what's the status of that, and when might we see it?
So the plan is right now we're going under an information security audit by the Department of Military, and so it's actually very fortuitous timing. I look forward to those types of things because of the feedback and the information that you can get out of them. So I'm actually going to use the output of that as part of the input into our strategic planning effort to set some objectives for our security area and our security office. In addition to that, we're going to have an engagement with Department of Technology. So some of my old friends are going to come over from Department of Technology and perform what's called an architectural assessment. And so as part of that business architectural assessment, we'll also be in preparation for development of the IT strategic plan. It'll help us develop or actually recognize how IT is currently supporting Parks business functions and where the kind of our value stream is in that process. Those are going to be prerequisites and input into our strategic planning effort that we're looking to kick off this summer.
Okay, you're kicking off this summer, done by the end of the year, or?
That's the goal.
Yeah,
the goal,
okay.
1920, end of the year, early.
That's a good scoop for us, Patrick.
Yeah.
We look for those kind of things around here.
Thanks.
Strategic plan by the end of the year. Okay. We talked about a lot that's going on currently. How about the anticipated? Now, the 2019-2020 budget came out 2 months ago, January. What do you hope for in that budget year that kicks off next July?
Well, in 1920, we're really just looking to, personally in IT, we're really just looking to make sure that we're driving the Reserve California project to fruition, that we're finalizing the point of sale rollout to all of our districts. Also, we're implementing Kronos, Timekeeper, so we're rolling out automated timesheets for the department. It's really a big project for us that we're looking to roll out starting late this summer or early fall.
Enterprise-wide?
Enterprise-wide.
So all 4,000 employees or so?
That's right, all 4,000 employees with an automated timesheet. So it's a rather big project, and we're taking a lot of time to focus on making those successful.
Just out of curiosity, what was the impetus for that, or the catalyst that kicked a project like that off? Because there's not, timekeeping is one of those projects you always hear about, kind of associated with payroll, and of course payroll died several years ago and hasn't been reactivated. But what was the genesis of that?
Well, I believe that came out of the transformation team as well. Efforts. As you can imagine, with the disparity of our department, with the vast number of locations where staff are have to do their work, perform their work, Parks was managing timesheets with a paper-based process, and so you can imagine the difficulty around managing that process and trying to figure out and get that payroll out on time. It's a very important function, and we thought that automating that would reduce a lot of the manual kind of paper drudgery that goes on around the department, and can help really modernize our HR department and bring it into the next generation.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. And what stage is it? It has been awarded to Kronos. The project's going on right now?
Right. So we've had a couple of different Kronos-related efforts. The first one was also in our HR shop. We've automated our hiring process. And so we had a paper-based hiring process, and now we have an automated system through Kronos that interacts with ECOS at CalHR. And so that's going very well. That's in its second phase of rollout. And then we'll be moving on to Timekeeper.
It's always a challenge. Spending a lot of time in DC, as I alluded to earlier, I think it takes approximately 9 months to hire someone in the federal government these days on average. 9 months, can you imagine? I don't think California's that bad.
No, we do much better than that.
Yeah, well that's good. Well, it's interesting. Patrick, it sounds like you're on top, particularly these administrative challenges that are so tough in government. Right. What do you like most about your job? You're the CIO now for 6 months, so you pretty much like a first-year law student know everything, right?
Yeah, not quite yet, but I do enjoy being part of such a dynamic leadership team. At Parks, we have a really capable and very smart group of executives, a fantastic leadership group that have really welcomed me with open arms and have been very anxious to provide me with the support that I needed, And so I really enjoy the family atmosphere also at parks. It's a really family-based organization. You can imagine that, they're very encouraging and getting out and enjoying our parks, making sure that we're, getting outdoors and making sure that we're enjoying the natural and cultural resources that the state has.
Your director of state parks, is it Mangat?
Yeah, Lisa Monget.
And how do you say it?
Monget.
Monget. Okay. And she's grown up in the state system, as I recall, right? Her background was the state.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Yeah. One of the things that's been in the paper lately, which I thought when I first read about it referred to state parks directly, but it not really, and that's Lake Elsinore and the poppies and everybody flocking out to see the wildflowers blooming from all the rain that we've had here in California over the last 6 months. Has that been an issue in the parks? Are you telling people not to come like they're doing that at Lake Elsinore?
In IT we don't deal with poppies too much, so I don't know.
Well, maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, maybe that is the problem. Yeah, no. So not that I know of. I know that we're encouraging people to come out and take a look at our bloom.
So you're open for business. That's the message.
That's my understanding.
That's the message we're giving out here. Open for business. We talked about the most enjoyable. When I was CIO in California and Massachusetts, both places. They said, well, what was the thing you liked least probably? And probably everybody would say meeting with vendors. Sorry, folks.
Yeah.
But we would say that, and I'd say, well, not really, because a lot of times if you first of all, they pay your salary, all right, in many cases, and second of all, you may end up on that side of the fence one day yourself. So you always try to. I try to accommodate them. My father was a federal public servant, so I figured. I grew up in a public sector environment much of my life and career. So how do you like vendors who approach you when they want to talk about business?
I've always been very open. So I've had a lot of vendor contact since I got the job about 7 months ago.
Shock.
Yeah, really, right? I try to have an open door. I think it's important to have a good partnership with the vendor community. I think that a good CIO always performs market research, and I see it as just an extension of market research, right? Trying to find out what's available in the marketplace. I think it's due diligence for me, really, and I try to create those partnerships, and I think they're very valuable. I think the vendor community has a large part in helping the state of California meet a lot of its IT objectives, and so I'm open. I have a pretty open door policy.
Mm-hmm. Well, then what other challenges do you feel, as a CIO, do you find the most, I don't want to say unenjoyable, but the biggest challenges to the job?
I think the biggest challenge with parks specifically is the fact that we're so disparately located. So we're obviously we have parks all over the state. It makes it a challenge for me to be able to get out and visit everybody. But it is on my map of things that I want to do. I want to really get out into the field and make sure that I'm listening to their experiences and to make sure that I'm noticing any opportunities that might be present there for IT to really help out with business operations. So I would say the most challenging part of my job is probably the fact that we're so disparately located, and I spend the majority of my time here in Sacramento headquarters office, and I really want to get an opportunity to get out there and learn more about the business programs and how I can help.
Well, that's always the biggest, one of the biggest challenges I think that all CIOs face, whether at department level or at the enterprise level, and that is aligning IT with the business, which everybody talks about. I've been talking about it for 20 years.
Right.
And it's challenging for a plethora of reasons. One of the biggest ones I used to say is because the folks from the executive office a lot of times didn't really care. We're interested in technology, and that has certainly changed over the last 2 decades, I want to say, and it's really going to change with the new governor. So how do you go approach that? What's your tactics to sit down with your various business heads and talk technology, if you will? How do you approach that?
Right. So I've had the opportunity to do that. So in the last 6 months, I've met with the leadership of our law enforcement division. I've met with the leadership of our operations division. And of course admin services, which where I'm located, and sat down and really listened to the things that they're trying to accomplish. When I came on board, Director Monget was, clear about what her objectives were and trying to move parks forward and continue really the momentum that has been gained by the department in automating and kind of expanding access to some of the state park systems. So really just sitting down and listening and trying to make sure that I'm bringing my knowledge and experience kind of to the game and contributing as a strategic business partner. So I've been lucky enough that my director has provided me with a seat at the executive staff meeting, and so that's new for parks.
How exciting, and congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
one of the biggest that's one of the biggest challenges the CIO has, is a seat at the table.
Right.
Please continue.
No, it's really provided me that seat at the table has really provided me with an opportunity to be present, when they're talking about, when executives are discussing, business issues or challenges they might be having. It also gives me kind of a broader sense of some of the issues that are going on department-wide and issues that the directors are really interested in. And so it's been fantastic. And it's also provided me with an opportunity to build some friendships and some partnerships with some of the other executives.
Particularly with those business units you're talking about, establishing that kind of relationship that you need to be successful.
It's super valuable. Yeah.
What were her primary initiatives in terms of what she wanted to see in technology? Can you relate that to us without letting a blurbing like I did about Gavin Newsom and telling tales?
No, I think it was pretty simple, really, just to kind of continue to try to further the program, to try to bring additional progress on some of the things that have already been started, really helping to finalize and get implemented the Reserve California system, really to make sure that the point of sale rollout, was completed, to make sure that we're able to begin to start gathering some of those very important business metrics that I spoke of earlier, so that we can, really represent our progress in that area as far as park visitation. So really just kind of bringing the parks information technology program forward, and I'm anxious to do that. Yeah.
Technology-wise, what's your favorite area that you like to pursue, that you can pursue now as a CIO?
I like to dabble in, I came from a Department of Technology. We did project oversight. I was on the procurement modernization team, so I managed that effort to kind of modernize information technology procurement. And so I like to dabble. I dabble in the project management shop. We're working very hard to try to mature our project management our organization, our office. Also taking a look at implementing IT governance. So I think it's very important to make sure that we have an enterprise governance process where we're making decisions as an organization and how we apply and use our IT resources. And so I'm kind of focused in that area and kind of making sure that we're getting those up and running. Yeah.
Are you using any kind of technical solution to some of these initiatives you're talking about? For example, your portfolio management or whatever. You want to tell us about that?
We actually are currently not using a solution, but it's on the map. It's definitely want to get a software solution in there to help us manage our IT portfolio. So it's something that we're definitely looking at, and I think we're going to incorporate into our strategy moving forward. I think it's very important to be able to gather the information that's provided by some of those tools.
Yeah, it's nice to have a playbook, if you will, that when someone says, how many projects do you have? Well, here we are. Here's the number we have, and here's where they stand. Obviously, the project tracking system the state has was a great improvement over things we've had in the past. So it's good to have those kind of, to take advantage of the technologies out there to do just that kind of thing. Have we missed anything as far as your initiatives, what you're looking at in the near future? Are you part of the Fiscal project? Do you use Fiscal?
Yeah, our department is implementing Fiscal. Yeah, we're currently using Fiscal in our budget and accounting shop. So we're currently rolling that out, and we're in production.
Will Kronos interface with that, or?
Currently there's no plans on interfacing our Kronos solution with Fiscal. I wouldn't say it's completely ruled out for the future, but there may be an opportunity there in the future. But right now, it's not part of our plans. Also, wanted to note things that I'm taking a look at. One of our major initiatives I don't want to be remiss and exclude is the fact that we're currently migrating over 110 servers and share files out of the Natural Resources Data Center into the Microsoft Azure environment. So through CDT's cloud service.
Okay. Speaking of cloud, are there any other areas of Parks and Rec that are going to utilize the cloud, or are utilizing now, or the plans are for it?
Sure.
Everybody has to talk about the cloud.
Yeah, it's a big topic, right? So the Reserve California system is currently a software as a service, so it's in the cloud. Additionally, our Kronos implementation is a cloud-based application, and we're moving a lot of our internal servers and share files to the Microsoft cloud. And so we're looking forward to taking advantage of the savings associated with that. There's a lot of advantages to that, and we're looking forward to making sure that we use all of them as effectively as possible.
So what does Garza think of everybody leaving his data center and going to the cloud?
Well, he's very encouraging. He's absolutely very encouraging. Yeah, he's been a catalyst on that front. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have to be. You have to
Right.
realize that what's going on now. Just from a cost-conscious perspective, you've got to take a look at that. I forgot to close the loop on the vendors. If I'm a new vendor, what do you recommend for me to help work with Parks and Rec, or an established vendor for that matter? How do you like them to approach you?
Oh, an email's fine, or a phone call is fine too. I have regular meetings with vendors pretty regularly. They reach out to me, come up, introduce themselves, at some of the forum events and things like that. There's also various consultants in the industry that bring people to me, that want to talk to me. So I'm open to those types of relationships as well. So yeah, so just reach out. Patrick.dennis@parks.ca.gov.
One more time?
Patrick.dennis@parks.ca.gov.
There you go. Like to bring in a little human interest into our conversations with CIOs. And one of the ones that I've been recently from the Federal News Network in Washington, D.C., where I broadcast with a radio station there every week. I interviewed Dennis Goulet, who's the New Hampshire Chief Information Officer, a really great guy. And he told us, and I learned, again, the crack research teams, that he was a youth girls soccer referee for 25 years. So I asked him, I said, can you write a book that says everything I needed to know about being a state CIO I learned by refereeing youth girls soccer? And I hear you're a big baseball fan and an umpire.
I am.
I am. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my son's in the Davis Little League, and so my son's 9 years old, and he's a big baseball guy. He really enjoys it, and I enjoy spending time out there with him. So I volunteer to be an umpire. I've been doing that for about the last 3 or 4 years or so now, and I really get a kick out of it.
Yeah, it's somewhat of a thankless task, huh?
Somewhat, but people take it
Parents
easy.
aren't too bad?
No, they take it
It's not
easy
the
on you out
kids.
there. They realize we're volunteers, and we're just everyday parents out there trying to
Good.
give our kids a
I
good
hope it
experience.
stays that way. You never,
Yeah.
you go online. There's always some story about some crazy parent doing something with some officiating thing. Well, that's wonderful. Good for you. I love
you.
baseball and had the same experience. I wasn't an umpire, but I know I coached for a while.
Yeah.
We're going to have to call it a show. I want to thank everyone for watching, and of course, special thanks to our guest, Patrick Dennis, the CIO for Parks and Rec, and thanks to all our sponsors again: Veeam, Advanced Onion, Akamai, IP Solutions, Carasoft, Digital Dreams, LexisNexis, and Federal News Network. The video on demand for this program will be available probably in about 24 hours. We look forward to having you join us next time. Till then, so long for now. I'm John Thomas Flynn.
Great.